This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, where we discuss everything in the world of sports. I'm Ben.
And I'm Anthony.
And we are here on a Friday, back here to end the week. Going to be talking a lot of football, both college and in the NFL. Also highlighting on some of the games from last night. We had the Patriots absolutely dismantling the Texans. And we had number 5 Clemson opening their ACC conference play with a win over Georgia Tech. We're also going to be talking about some trending news featuring people like Carson Wentz, among others. So we were talking about that at the end of the show. One thing you're going to like, and I think you'll like it too, Anthony, is I will talk about some stadium foods.
Okay.
That is going to kind of make you question a lot of things. Like, these are just out of the ordinary, strange stadium food.
Okay, I'm down. Yeah, let's do that.
It seems like every stadium, no matter where, they have, like, unique things.
Yeah, they always have something special to like the area they're at.
Right, so I will be talking about some of that because there are some stadium foods on this list that will make you sort of question a lot of things. All right, so let's start off the show, obviously, by talking Thursday Night Football last night. As I mentioned, New England Patriots absolutely dismantled the Texans. They actually shut them out, 27-0.
Yeah.
So Jacoby Brissett, his first career start, you know, it's almost like you saw this coming.
I would like to say I saw this coming. I may or may not have taken the Texans because, you know, short week, Texans defense is really good. Apparently that didn't matter at all.
As a fan, I love the Thursday Night Football games because obviously you want to watch them.
Of course.
But as a football standpoint, I absolutely hate these Thursday night games for the simple reason like the Texans had. So you play Sunday in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. You have Monday where normally you'd have a rest day. Tuesday you'd have a rest day. You kind of have to speed things up right away. Mm-hmm. And then Wednesday you might practice, and then you travel from Texas to Massachusetts. So not a far plane ride, but not something that's short.
Exactly, yeah.
Few hours. So you have a short week. You're not ready to play. You're still lingering from the week before. Then you have to go in and play, in my opinion, the best team in the league. Mm-hmm. Whether it be a rookie quarterback or not, you're playing the best team in the league, the best organization in the league with Belichick. Josh McDaniels, a great offensive mind. And that's exactly what you saw last night. 27-0. Jacoby Brissett doesn't do anything special, but he doesn't do anything drastic. He doesn't turn the ball over. Throws for 100 yards. He also ran the ball 48 yards, had a touchdown. They mixed in some options. He's kind of a big guy. You know what I mean? So they kind of took that to their advantage. I was surprised at that because they did not have a backup quarterback. Their wide receiver, Julian Edelman, was their backup quarterback last night. So I was surprised that they kind of threw Brissett out there to maybe get hit. You know, I thought they would kind of take it easy with him, which they did, obviously. But a lot of short passes. He only completed one pass longer than 10 yards in the air. So a lot of short passes. Houston came into the game with the most sacks in the league. Quick passes is a way to eliminate that. Screens, check downs. And then they chipped in with LeGarrette Blount running for 105 yards and 2 scores. He's having a monster year so far. And, I mean, this is just New England. What do you expect?
Pretty much, yeah. This is New England. We've seen them win in a couple different ways. So you started out with Garoppolo last week against Miami, just killed the team in the first half. Then he got hurt. You had Brissett come in, just kind of do enough to win. Don't do a lot because it's his first year in the league, going against the team just out of nowhere. Didn't want him to have too much on his plate. Now this week he had 103 yards passing, so LeGarrette Blount had more yards rushing than he did passing. And you're talking about those little short passes. Those are basically some things they use as like running plays anyways, where they dump it off to Edelman, dump it off to Hogan, stuff like that. So they were doing that stuff again to try and help him out just so that way he doesn't get too overwhelmed because they even started Gronk, if for nothing else, in a decoy. I mean, he didn't have any yards at all, so he was just kind of out there just to be like, hey, pay attention to him because if he's open, you might as well throw to him.
Exactly. Gronkowski played 14 snaps.
Right.
I saw him get targeted once towards the goal line. Obviously, you would too with his size. But, yeah,
exactly.
like you said, he was just out there really as a decoy.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and I mean, you have these things which, I mean, we're starting to get into the type of the year now where the Thursday night games are bad. They'll be good for the first couple of weeks, but now you're starting to get into week 4, 5, 6. Next week you're going to have the Dolphins play
They're playing the Bengals next week.
Bengals next week, yeah. So they're going to have that game may be terrible. You're starting to get to the season where, like you're saying, you only have a couple of days to prepare. And when you're used to having 6 days to prepare for weeks to prepare for a team, when it's only a couple of days, you start to just not prepare as much, and you start to assume things are going to happen. Oh, maybe Brissett's not going to be that good. We can probably blitz a little bit more, but I mean, probably should never bet against Belichick. Even next week for the Patriots, you probably shouldn't bet against them. They're going to play Buffalo.
At home, too.
At home, and if I would have said, before the season started, hey, they're going to have at least 3 wins. Worst case scenario, when Brady's gone, it's going to be 3 wins. You'd be like, oh, yeah, absolutely. So next week, I mean, they could totally lay an egg, and it's still house money at this point.
Yeah, I would have thought the Patriots go 3-1 without Brady. I would have thought they would have lost week 1 against Arizona.
Yeah.
Look at 3 straight home games. I thought that was definitely a lock. A short week, I think the home team wins a lot of the time. I like the home teams on short weeks. Then you have Buffalo, who looked just like an absolute train wreck. Rex Ryan's defense not playing well. He fires Greg Roman right after he takes the offensive coordinator team picture, fires him right after that, which is kind of messed up. But
right.
I mean, it is what it is. So,
but he wasn't going to fire his brother. His brother's not the defensive coordinator, but he still does some defensive stuff, and you're not going to fire your brother.
No, of course not. So, and I honestly think it's not long before Rex Ryan gets fired. So,
yeah.
And I think they're looking at 0-4. They're playing Arizona this week, and then they have New England next week. Whether it's Brissett or it's Garoppolo, it looks like it'll probably be Brissett. I still think it's a loss because Josh McDaniels, Bill Belichick seem to always do what is best for the player and for the team. Obviously, they have Brissett getting ready on a short week, only 4 days to prepare. Not a guy who's going to throw it down the field like Garoppolo, not a guy with a strong arm, a guy who's going to dink and dunk it, maybe run it a little bit, and just do what is best for him and for the team, and that's run the ball. The Patriots ran it 39 times last night. They're not a running team.
Right.
That's not something you don't see. Only threw it 19 times. And it doesn't help, or it also helps that Houston Texans have 3 turnovers, 2 of them which were on kickoff returns.
Right.
So they turn it over as soon as New England scores twice.
Yeah.
Give them the ball right back. And it just wasn't a good situation at all for Houston. They gave the game to New England in my eyes.
Yeah, and that's going to be a backbreaker when you have, the chance of all right, fine, they scored, but I'm going to get the ball back. Oh, no, now they get the ball back. That's got to be disheartening for a team. It's just you're like, okay, that's fine. They scored. Now let's score. Wait, we don't get the ball. They have the ball again. Okay. Like that, one of those things just has to kill you as the other team. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller have had good years, but they combined for 87 yards. So, that New England defense, 196 yards for Brock Osweiler, 0 touchdowns and interception, and Lamar Miller had a decent enough game with 80 yards. But the one thing the Patriots do really well is, if you do 2 things really well, they'll take away one of them. So Lamar Miller still had a decent enough game, 80 yards, but Brock Osweiler, who they've seen last year and put up an okay game, just not even 200 yards. His QBR was 29.1, the passer rating 60.6, sacked a couple of times. They were able to get to him.
Yeah, he was under duress a lot of the night.
Yeah.
He might have gotten sacked twice, but he got hit at least 5
Yeah,
6
exactly.
times. So the offensive line was not doing too well for Houston. And credit to New England defense. Obviously, Houston does turn the ball over 3 times, but they still put up a shutout, which is extremely hard to do.
Yeah.
So I think you got to give credit there to New England. So they have a week and a half to prepare now for Rex Ryan and the Buffalo Bills. I mean, you give Belichick a week and a half to prepare for anybody, I'll take him no matter what.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so now let's move into the slate of games we have on Sunday and Monday. We have a lot of great games. So we have the Arizona Cardinals going into the aforementioned Buffalo Bills and taking them on in Buffalo. We have the Oakland Raiders taking on the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee. We have a matchup between 2 teams that, unless we have a tie, are going to get their first wins of the year in the rookie from USC Cody Kessler-led Cleveland Browns and the Miami Dolphins. We have the Ravens at 2-0 taking on the Jaguars, who are 0-2. And if the Jaguars have any chance of making the playoffs, they absolutely have to win tonight, or on Sunday, I should say. And then we have a NFC North matchup between both teams at 1-1, the Detroit Lions going into Lambeau Field to take on the Packers. We have the Broncos going into Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. I think that's a really good matchup, probably my matchup of the weekend, at least in the early part of the day. We have the Vikings going into Charlotte to take on the Panthers. The game is still going to be played in North Carolina amid all the riots and everything. So I think that's probably a good decision. I think an NFL stadium is not the place nor the time to sort of have something bad happen like this. So
well, it's not the first time they've had stuff like this before. Maybe not for NFL, but back with the Cardinals, I believe. Back when Ferguson had everything happening there, they still played the games in St. Louis. So
Right.
you've had sort of a precedent with this before of just like understanding whatever's happening outside. You still have the game as kind of a different thing.
yeah, I think it'll be okay, and I don't think you would expect anything major to happen. I'll say that.
Right.
So the Vikings going in there without Adrian Peterson, who will be out 3 to 4 months with a torn meniscus, had surgery just yesterday. So we have a NFC East matchup. The 0-2 Washington Redskins are taking on the 2-0 New York Giants at MetLife Stadium. We have the Rams going down to Florida to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, both teams at 1-1. We have an NFC West rivalry, I guess you could say, over the last few years. Not so much now,
Right.
highly matchup, but the 49ers are going into Central League Field to take on the Seahawks. We have the Jets and the Chiefs, who's probably my game of the week in the afternoon. I think that could be a really good game. The Chargers are going into Lucas Oil Stadium to take on Andrew Luck and the Colts. It's a big game for the Colts. They absolutely need to win this game. We have the Steelers and the Eagles matching up, a 2-0, both unbeaten team matchup. I think we'll really see what Carson Wentz is made of this week. Obviously, you can't control who you play. But first 2 weeks takes on the Browns and the Bears, probably two of the bottom feeders in the league. Now they're taking on, in my opinion, an elite team in Pittsburgh. So we'll really see what the rookie from North Dakota State has. And then Monday night will be the Chicago Bears and the Dallas Cowboys. That game will be at Jerry World. So, Anthony, what are a couple games that you're looking at this weekend that you think sort of penciled in could be really good matchups or some big storylines?
So one of the games that I think, at least for the morning game, maybe not exactly because they're two great teams, but just as far as like intrigue factor goes, you got Washington taking on the Giants, and I'm basically just focusing on one matchup, just Odell and Josh Norman.
Have to.
Like that's all I care about with that game. Just have like one camera just focused on them. I understand there's a game playing, whatever Eli does, whatever Kirk Cousins does, that's fine. You focus on them too. But if anything happens, because last year when they played, they legitimately fought.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, you had
like,
both guys getting personal foul penalties.
Yeah.
I would expect it to be a little chippy. I think with the new NFL rule where if you get 2 personal foul penalties, you're ejected. I
Right.
think they'll probably calm it down a little bit as opposed to last year. You can't expect the same thing.
Right.
But it's going to be chippy. It always
totally.
is with Norman. So it's going to be chippy. And this is a huge game for Washington, a team that won the division last year, 0-2. Both games they lost at home, which is huge. I feel like the Redskins are done personally. You lose your first 2 games, and they're both at home, so you have 25% of your season at home done with, and you haven't even got a win yet.
Yeah.
So now they go on the road to face the Giants. I liked the Giants this whole year. I said at the beginning of the year I thought they'd win the division. The Giants are 4.5-point favorites. It looks like Josh Norman is maybe going to shadow Odell Beckham finally.
Have to.
It seems like the Washington Redskins are totally against Josh Norman following the top receiver. Week 1, Antonio Brown. Week 2, Des Bryant. They've kind of just put him on one side of the field. But now it seems like he might have that Revis Island shutdown lock role in place, which I think honestly creates better storylines for us. But
Right. Well, that's also not that the NFL teams do anything they care about the media, but it's one thing if you don't to go against Antonio Brown, but like when he signed in Washington, the first thing everyone talked about was, okay, now you're going to go against Beckham twice.
Yes.
And if you ignore Beckham again, they'll just rip him to shreds. Like especially if, the other cornerback, Breeland, if he just gets torched by Beckham over and over and over and over again, and if the Redskins lose, they're just going to destroy Norman. So like he had to do it just to at least save face a little bit, just to be like, okay, that's fine, I got it. I'm going to go on Beckham, and I mean they would have talked regardless, whether or not Odell Beckham was being covered by him or not. They still would have talked to each other.
Yeah, honestly, I think Norman wants to do this. I think he wanted to match up against Antonio Brown. I think he wanted to match up against Des Bryant, but the coaching staff kind of has a different system in place, which obviously you're not going to question.
Right.
But I feel like he absolutely wanted to do this, and now he's finally getting his shot. Like, okay, we lost 2 games. You've seen what these 2 guys have done against our other corners and DBs. Let me finally have my chance. And I think they're finally going to do that now against Odell Beckham. And I think that bodes well for the other guys, Victor Cruz, Sterling Shepard,
Right.
maybe like Shane Vereen coming out of the backfield. I think that bodes well for the Giants because you have Odell Beckham, at least on paper, as we saw last year, kind of getting shut down on one side of the field. So I think that bodes well for the other guys. I got to like the Giants in this game. They're at home. Washington's not playing great. Kirk Cousins, I think, is maybe feeling a little bit of that pressure after the year he had last year. So I got to take the Giants this game.
Yeah, no, I would take the Giants too. You had for Washington. You've gone against, two really good teams as far as Pittsburgh and Dallas goes, at least as far as the quarterbacks go, because Prescott had 292 yards in the game against Washington, so they don't exactly have the greatest pass defense in the league, and now you're going to be going against the, Giants, and Eli Manning, although he didn't score a bunch of points last week against the Saints, is very capable of throwing for 300 yards and a couple of touchdowns, and you're just totally, blowing the game out in the first and second quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Giants, I loved them all year. I thought Eli Manning's going to have a huge year, so I got to take the Giants this game. So now I want to look at one of my games of the week, and it features the other team in New York at MetLife Stadium, and that's the Jets. They're going on the road to face the Kansas City Chiefs. Arrowhead Stadium, one of the toughest stadiums to play in. It's almost like a college atmosphere there in Missouri. So the Jets going to face the Chiefs. It's a big matchup for both teams. Both teams are 1-1. The Chiefs look like maybe everyone's popular pick at the beginning of the season to win their division over Denver. And then the Jets, maybe a fringe playoff team. They were so close last year. I think this might be my upset of the week.
Okay.
And I think it's tough because it's hard to win at Arrowhead Stadium for an opposing team. But I like the Jets for a couple of reasons. One, they've had a week and a half to prepare. They played last week on Thursday against Buffalo. The passing attack looks good with Fitzpatrick, Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker. Matt Forte is running the ball well, although I do think they will sort of trim his touches a little bit. He has 52 carries already. He's on pace for 470 total touches for a guy who's over 30 years old.
That's not good.
It's just asking to have an injury. And Matt Forte is one of those guys who's had durability issues in the past. So I think they'll trim him down a little bit as the season progresses. But in this game, I got to like the Jets. I think the one knock on the Jets' defense so far this year is that they're giving up the big play.
Right.
When you look at Kansas City, they don't have really that deep threat big play option. Obviously, they have Jeremy Maclin, who's a decent receiver, but Alex Smith is not the kind of guy that's going to throw it 40, 45 yards down the field. He's going to throw it 10, 15 yards at most. So I think in a close game, I think maybe the Jets can squeak one by something like 20-17, maybe one of those weird field goal kicking games. It seems like Kansas City seems to always kick 3, 4, 5 field goals a game. So I like the Jets in a close game.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of with you on that. So, Darrelle Revis has been well publicized how he's gotten burned the first 2 weeks of the season. But like you said, he's had 10 days. And, maybe he gets put on Maclin as far as because that's the speed guy. But he said his longest reception, Maclin, is 22 yards. So he's not exactly burning teams because Alex Smith, that's not his game. Spencer Ware has the most yards for the team with 177 and along with 45. So they'll probably have Revis on one of those two people and just say, like, all right, this is your redemption week. If you can shut one of them down, maybe get an interception or two, then the, whole jokes about Revis Island, with all these people on there now, it's not an island anymore.
It's almost like an invitation to come into the island.
Right. Everybody's sipping Mai Tais on Revis Island. Maybe those jokes start to go down a little bit if you can shut one of them down. Ryan Fitzpatrick looks good enough. Like, I don't think he's ever going to look like an elite quarterback, but he looks fully competent and like someone that can probably win you 9 or 10 games.
He's got a lot of weapons too.
That's the thing, yeah, with Brandon Marshall, like you said, who looked like he got just his knees shredded, but apparently came back and now everything's fine. It's always weird with me. I never understand that. Like, people with non-contact injuries, that's ACL and you're done for the whole year, but if you look like your leg just got twisted like Marshall's did, no, you're fine.
This is a sprained knee. He checks out for a couple minutes,
right.
Then he's right back in.
Yeah.
And now he has a week and a half to sort of rest up. It's all and weird things happen all the time. There's some things you just can't explain. I think this is one of them. So
yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna say my lock of the week. I'm not gonna make it an easy one. I'm gonna kind of go off the spread. I think the absolute lock to win is Dallas taking on Chicago. You're starting Brian Hoyer. Jay Cutler's out with thumb injury, so I'll take Dallas in a landslide. But my lock is Arizona going on the road to face the Bills. Arizona's a 4-point favorite. I see them winning by a lot more. I see them winning by at least double digits. I say at least 10. I think the one knock on Arizona is I don't like when teams go West Coast to East Coast,
right.
East Coast to West Coast, because you have that long flight, the jet lag. Buffalo's coming off a week and a half rest, playing last Thursday, but they're just a train wreck right now. Rex Ryan's defense looks terrible. They look really bad against the pass. What does Arizona want to do? They want to throw the ball. Larry Fitzgerald, Michael Floyd, John Brown, Carson Palmer's tearing it up. Think about what he did last week against Tampa. They have a good running game in David Johnson, who's capable. Even Chris Johnson played well last week. So I'll take Arizona by a lot more than 4 points.
Okay, yeah, I like that. For my lock of the week, I would say it's the Steelers over the Eagles. Like I said, Carson Wentz has looked pretty good, but again, not going against the best teams, going against the Browns, which are the Browns. And
That's the best way to put them.
The Browns. So. And then you go against Chicago, which is kind of hit and miss, but now you're going against an actual offense. And it's not that Carson Wentz has anything to do with playing the other offense, but let's say they score 28 points, he has to score 30 or more, or 29 or more points. And I don't know if he's capable of doing that because basically all they've been telling him to do is like not screw up.
Right.
Now he's going to actually have to do stuff because Roethlisberger's going to throw to Antonio Brown. You know that, D'Angelo Williams is still playing. This is the last week.
He's like, I swear, D'Angelo Williams is like father time because he's got 237 yards rushing in two touchdowns in 2 weeks. He's also got over 100 yards receiving in the 2 games. He's 32 years old. He's the oldest running back in the NFL.
Right.
He's really just a fill-in for Le'Veon Bell for really this last week because Bell's facing a 3-game suspension. He'll be back next week.
Right.
I just don't know how he does it. I think it's maybe the system.
But that's why. Well, the system. That's also why because all you need him for is 3 or 4 weeks. Last year, Le'Veon Bell, was out, so he had to come and just do some patchwork running back stuff, and he did fine. Like if you just ask someone, it's like, okay, I need you for like 4 days in the whole year, just 4 days. They can do that out 16 games. That makes it a little bit harder. But if all you have to do is just this little chunk, as we've seen with the Patriots, okay, Garoppolo, we need you for 4 games. Like he got you 2, Brissett, we need you for like this game and next. They can do it. Maybe they don't look as good as D'Angelo Williams did, but D'Angelo Williams was great in Carolina.
Yeah, he was always a good running back.
Yeah, so you're just basically telling them like, be great. Like you're talking Matt Forte. He's been doing well, but it's a limited amount of time. Now, if you go to week 11, maybe that time maybe Forte is hurt or maybe he's not doing as well because eventually getting hit that many times hurts and you just stop being as productive. But yeah, if all you ask D'Angelo Williams to do is just, hey, I need you for these 4 weeks or 3 weeks, he's got you.
Yeah, he's having a good season, and this is a lot of what you saw last year, early in the part of the season when Le'Veon Bell was suspended again, and then you had it at the end as well when Le'Veon Bell hurt his knee and missed the rest of the year. So
yeah,
I like Pittsburgh as well. They are a road favorite, which kind of scares me every now and then, but It is still in Philadelphia, so it's still in the same state. They're not having to travel very far. I think, like I said, you'll really see what Carson Wentz is made of this week because he's playing an elite team. As you mentioned, Anthony, he's going to have to do a lot more. He's not going to be able to just kind of dink and dunk his way around.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to do a lot more. Ryan Matthews with the running games have to do a lot more. So I think you'll really see what Wentz is made of. I'm not a big believer in the Eagles. I think they've played 2 really bad teams, but although they have looked really good. So I think you'll really see what Wentz as a quarterback is made of. Because if he can compete, not make too many mistakes, then I think you're looking at a guy who, okay, this guy might be for real.
Right.
So with that being said, we're going to take our first break here. On Monday, we'll be back reviewing all the games and then previewing Monday Night Football as well. So dealing with all the top storylines of the league. So we're going to take our first break here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Coming out of the break, we're going to preview the Saturday and Friday, really, of games tonight, of college football this week. We have a lot of great matchups. We have conference play starting, which is always good. So we'll be right back here. Don't you guys go anywhere.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concept Sports Podcast. Last night, both the Giants and the Mets won to take a half-game lead in the NL wildcard standings, as well as the Tigers defeating the Twins to take a sole possession of the second wildcard spot from the Orioles, who lost to the Red Sox. So, last segment we talked about the NFL and the last night's matchup with the Patriots and Texans, talked about this weekend's matchups and everything else like that. So now we're going to transition a little bit. We're going to go to college football. So last night, you have your nice little Thursday matchup. You had Clemson taking on Georgia Tech. Clemson had a little bit of a beatdown, 26-7 over them. Deshaun Watson, 304 yards passing, a couple of touchdowns. So, they looked really dominant, which helped the cause because next week you're going to have to face Houston. You got a couple of matchups this weekend. Tonight you have USC taking on Utah. You got a couple of other good games. Do you have any thoughts about this?
Yeah, Clemson last night looked really impressive. They were up 23-0 at halftime. Then they kind of took their foot off the pedal, I felt like. Only scoring 3 points in the second half. Giving up 7 is not really much. But definitely, I think you have Clemson now with a week and a half to prepare. I keep saying that.
Sure.
But they have a week and a half to prepare for Louisville next week.
Which they'll need.
They will be at home, will be Clemson. That's obviously going to be the matchup of the week next week. We're going to save that for next week, though. So tonight, as you mentioned, Utah and USC. I got to take the Utes in this game. They're at home. The ranked team's favored. USC could go to 1-3 under Clay Helton to start the season. Absolute turmoil could be happening in LA. I think that could be really bad for USC. So we have a lot of good ranked games, especially in the SEC, which, of course, is no surprise. So number 12, Georgia, is going in to take on Ole Miss in Mississippi. You also have number 19, Florida, going to face Tennessee. And then you have number 17, Arkansas, facing number 10, Texas A&M. I mean, I think those are all good games. You have a lot of other great matchups. You have a Big Ten matchup between Wisconsin and Michigan State. As far as Wisconsin goes, I think Wisconsin reminds me of last year's Iowa. Kind of that team who got off to a good start, won a lot of games. Look at Wisconsin beating LSU week 1 at Lambeau Field. So I think Wisconsin is a team that reminds me a lot of Iowa last year. I don't think they're that good. I think they're really overrated. I look at Michigan State is at home. Great defense. Went on the road last week to beat Notre Dame. Really were handling them until Notre Dame came back at the end there. I really like the Spartans by a lot more than 5.5. I think they're going to put up a good performance against Wisconsin.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that because you talk about, Wisconsin, they beat LSU 16-14, which matters. That absolutely looks good. Then you face, the kind of easy teams that you should be able to beat 97-0. You beat Arkansas 54-10. Then you face Georgia State, and you only beat them 23-17. And Georgia State, by no means, should be within a touchdown of Wisconsin, the 11th ranked team in the nation. So, they're going to have a test for the next 3 weeks. You got Michigan State this week. You got Michigan after that, and you got Ohio State after that.
Yeah, we'll really find out what Wisconsin's made of in these next few games.
Like, if they go 3-0, then, just, if they win out, then you're in the playoff.
If they go 3-0,
that's it. Go into the playoff. That's it.
If they go 3-0, I'd say you could probably put them ahead of Alabama at number 1 if that was the case. I mean, I don't see it happening, but we have seen crazier things.
Yeah, even if you go 2-1, let's say you lose to Michigan State, but you beat Michigan, you beat Ohio State, then even then, you may dip a little bit, but you beat, at that point, 2 of the top 10 teams in the nation.
Right. Okay, so we have, as I mentioned, number 12, Georgia, going on the road to face Ole Miss. A big game for the Running Rebels, obviously losing 2 games, 2 tough opponents to Florida State, and then last week the shootout to Alabama. Seems like Ole Miss is great at the early part of the game, getting ahead by 21 in both games, but then just fall apart and end up losing. You have Georgia coming off a good win last week against Missouri, a come-from-behind win. The Rebels are a 7.5-point favorite. I got to go with the home team here. It's tough to win on the road in the SEC. You're facing a good, solid opponent, Chad Kelly at quarterback. Look at Georgia, great running back in Nick Chubb. He reminds me a lot of like Ray Rice, kind of body-wise.
Okay.
But not much of a passing game. I got to take Ole Miss.
Yeah, so you have a couple of styles like that. You had Chad Kelly, who's averaging over 300 yards a game. You got Nick Chubb, who's averaging over 120 yards a game. Both of them really, really elite in their fields. You got it at Ole Miss, which helps the cause. Yes, Georgia is 3-0, but every time it's an SEC matchup, when you go on the road, it's never a good thing because you always have a rowdy environment, whether it's LSU, Florida, Alabama, wherever you're going. It's always really hard to play. So, yeah, I would probably, if I had to lean one way, I would say Ole Miss, even though they're 0-1 in the conference, being at home, I would absolutely take them, 7.5, maybe a little too high, but I would still take Ole Miss.
Okay. Let's stay with the SEC. So this is an upset I really like this week, and that's Florida going on the road to face Tennessee. Tennessee and Florida both undefeated. Tennessee ranked 14, Florida ranked 19. Tennessee is the home team, and Florida are going to be without their starting quarterback, Luke Del Rio, who's the son of Raiders coach Jack Del Rio. He has an MCL sprain, so he's going to be out a few weeks. But I kind of like Florida in this game. They have a very, very good defense, one of the best in the country in my eyes. Tennessee has a really bad offensive line, so I don't think they're going to create a lot of running game for Jalen Hurd. I think that Josh Dobbs maybe going to be under duress a little bit. I think Florida can come on the road and kind of squeak out a close win.
Yeah, no, I can see that. You have Florida, they haven't had, the same thing early in the year. You face the Cupcakes. You got UMass. They beat 24-7. They beat Kentucky, who's never been a good college football team necessarily.
No.
45.
This isn't basketball.
Right. Basketball, they got to. Yeah, basketball, they get all the good recruits. They'll win. But, when you college football, not so much. And then after that, Florida decided to go and play North Texas. They beat them 32-0, which you probably should do. They're looking a lot better. Tennessee, they had that scare against Appalachian State. But as we can tell, Appalachian State's not a terrible team. They're in Division One
okay.
now. Yeah, they can give you a good scare. I mean, you got Michigan a good scare a handful of years ago, but they're a good enough team to where they'll scare you. So, but yeah, no, between those two, yes, I guess it is an upset because Florida's 19 and Tennessee's 14. But, I would take them, I guess, going against what I said before because Tennessee will be at home. But, both of them are 3-0, and I think, yeah, I would take the upset with that. I would take Florida just because, Tennessee, like you said, shaky offensive line, and they're not going to do as well to help out.
Okay, so let's talk upsets here.
Okay.
So I have an upset special. I really like this game spread-wise. As far as a win, I think it's going to be a close game. But I really like number 9 Washington against Arizona. I really like Arizona in this game. So you have a 7:30 local time start out there on the West Coast. Mm-hmm. You have Washington going in to face Arizona. It's always a tough place to play. You've seen a lot of upsets at that stadium in Arizona. It's going to be hot. Washington has not played the best schedule of anybody. They've played Rutgers, Idaho, and Portland State. They've blown all 3 of them out.
Right.
They've all been at home, so they're having their first road game of the year. Mm-hmm. They're facing a tough team in Arizona. Rich Rodriguez, think about what he's done in college football, can really score points. Washington's a 12-point favorite. I think this game will be close. I think Arizona has a chance to win at the end. I think Washington will maybe squeak away with the win, but I love the 12 points for Arizona.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see what you're doing there because you have the young quarterback in Jake Browning in Washington who, like I said, he's done really well, but the competition he's faced hasn't been the same. Now you're facing Arizona, who's 2-1. They've had a decent enough schedule. They've faced BYU, but they lost, 18-16, but still that's a good enough opponent to where they were challenged. Like you said, Washington hasn't been challenged. Browning, who had a decent enough year last year for being a freshman quarterback, now you're actually facing the actual competition in your conference. You're facing Arizona, so you're actually facing somebody who's going to test you. Before, you just had these games where you can throw for 300 yards, and it's not going to matter as much. So I would still say that Washington would win, but I think the 12 is too high. I think it'll be a lot closer of a game. I think they'll at least understand because, the coach for Washington, the old coach over at Boise State, Peterson, he's going to have them prepared because that's one thing Boise always was. They always were that team that had to come in and just always fight for, winning the game. So I think he's going to get in his head look, I get it. You've done great. That's fantastic. If you stink in this game, it's not going to matter. Everything you've done, no one's going to care about. So I think he's going to get in his head enough and maybe they'll win by, 12, 13 and cover the spread. But I think they'll still eke it out 3 points, something like that at the very end.
Yeah, I mentioned it last week. I thought that a team on upset alert was Texas against Cal because of the same thing. You have the 7:30 start, 9:30 Texas time. Cal actually went on to win that game 50-43. So, I mean, anything's possible. It seems like you always have these late West Coast Pac-12 games that are always really, really good. Mm-hmm. So, you have a lot of great games on the schedule. Obviously, on Monday, we will be breaking all of them down, recapping the weekend. Maybe you'll see some crazy stuff like last week we saw Louisville and Florida State. Louisville absolutely trounced them. So maybe we'll see some more fireworks happen, and we will keep you updated here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. So with that being said, we'll take our final break, and then we'll lead in to the highly anticipated What's Trending, talking about stadium food. I know you're excited, as am I.
Yes.
We're going to talk a little bit about David Ortiz, Carson Wentz, among others. So we'll be right back here, guys, at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back into the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Okay, Anthony. So today is September 23rd, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
Today is the 15-year anniversary of Mo Lewis, the guy who hit Drew Bledsoe and knocked him out of the game, starting the ever-so Hall of Fame career of Tom Brady.
Right. Okay.
So 15 years to the day is when Drew Bledsoe's, you can say his career ended, and Tom Brady was thrown in there.
Mm-hmm.
Think about if that hit never happened.
You think about a couple different things with the Patriots. You think if the Tuck rule doesn't happen, you think if
Spygate
didn't accuse of it because that was what motivated them to go 16-0 in the regular season. There's a couple of things that have happened that have like made Tom Brady's career more historic than it could have been. Yeah, if Bledsoe doesn't just get destroyed on a play, if they don't get that one call, if they don't, have Randy, even though they didn't win, you don't have Randy Moss setting, records that in 2007 season. Yeah, I mean, I've always felt bad for Bledsoe because he's not a terrible quarterback. He's really good, like number-wise and everything else. He's one of the, top 30, I don't know how you would rank it, quarterbacks of all time. Just he gets so overshadowed because, you were the one that lost your job to Tom Brady.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think it's 15 years that the Brady legacy has sort of started, and obviously look at where it is now.
Right.
I'd say Brady goes down as the best quarterback of all time, just looking at a pure statistical-wise and what he's done and everything.
Right.
So, obviously, I don't think Brady's anything he is without Belichick, but I don't think Belichick is what he is without Tom Brady, so I think they go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. But now we're going to transition into something totally not even related to New England. So, on the break, I had you come over here and look at some of these.
Right.
So we have the stadium foods, the weird, unique, interesting, whatever you want to call it, stadium foods. So one of them you know about, and I know about as well, is the ham dog.
Yeah.
So we have the hot dog hamburger mashup. Mm-hmm. So it's, for those of you that are listening, it's kind of, you have a hamburger and you kind of like cut a slit in the middle.
Yeah.
And then you put a hot dog right down the middle. So you have the two of them combined. Then you have a special bun. So you have pretty much a hamburger bun, a circle bun. And then you have it extend out a little bit where the hot dog goes. So this came from Shark Tank in Australia. And as of next year, it's going to be coming into like stadiums everywhere. So I've actually had this before. Not this combo, but kind of a homemade one where you just like cook a hot dog, cut it in half, put it on top of a hamburger. So I've actually had this before, but now you have it like exclusively its own bun and everything.
Right.
And you know about this as well.
Yeah. No, I saw this. I loved this idea because it was something clever enough and it wasn't anything too complex. Like you were showing me some of the things back there. And some of these are just like insane ideas. Like I think it was basically just like these people had extra food in the back and they didn't know what to do with them. Like one of them had like Fruit Loops mixed with like I don't remember what else.
I'll get to it. Don't worry.
Yeah, there's
like at least 6 or 7 on here. A couple of them look like they could be pretty tasty. A couple of them look like, I mean, you'd have to pay me to even eat. So
yeah. So like some of these just are like really weird. Some of these looked really good. My thing, I love the Miami Mex dog. That was my favorite one, basically because I can have tacos, burritos, any kind of Mexican food, all day long.
Yeah. So you have the Miami Mex dog. I'm sorry. So this is being sold at Marlins games. So you have pretty much a taco, and then you throw in some chili, maybe a little cheese, obviously with the taco, and a hot dog. So you have like a chili cheese taco hot dog.
All about it.
So that's being sold with Miami with the Marlins. So some of the others on here is you have Vienna beef and Giordino's. They teamed up to make a deep dish pizza, a deep dish style hot dog pizza.
Yeah.
So the crust is literally like a hot dog bun. You have like little Vienna beef sausages. This was sold at Wrigley Field during the summertime. The one that looks the best to me is you have the Burgeriza. Mm-hmm. So you have the cheeseburger with the buns being pepperoni pizzas. This was sold with the Braves.
That is so much extra. Like that, like it's not even just like it's like a pizza that's like a calzone where it's kind of like you just see like the crust and everything's like inside of it. No, it's legitimately like a pizza on top of a burger.
Yes.
Like full-blown pepperoni pizza.
A gigantic burger because obviously you have to have a pizza on top, so you have like personal pizzas.
Right.
But still, that's really big.
Yeah, it's basically a round table personal pizza on both sides, burger in the middle of it, and just like have fun with your like food coma for the next 3 hours.
So you have the grilled cheeseburger. So you have a grilled cheese sandwich with a hamburger that's sold at Raymond James Stadium. That's where the Buccaneers play, South Florida. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the Miami Mex burger. here's what the Indians are doing. So you have the chili cheese hot dog with Fruit Loops on top. I don't really get that. I don't really understand that one. That doesn't sound too good. So you have at Fenway Park in Boston, you have the Cheetos popcorn. You have like buttered popcorn with Cheetos mixed in. That's nothing too out there. I feel like you could just make that whenever you want. One thing that looks absolutely terrible to me is you have the chocolate bacon Blitz pizza.
Yes.
So you have Reese's peanut butter cups, peanut butter, chocolate fudge, and bacon on a pizza crust. Mm-hmm. That just sounds terrible.
That's a random mix. Like the Fruit Loops is a weird mix for stuff like that, but that I feel like you just combine. You got the chocolate and bacon, which people like. It's always good to have it. Maybe not combined. Like those are kind of weird things.
It looks literally just like a conglomeration of just like mess on the picture. So we mentioned the ham dog. You have the brat burger, pretty much the same thing with the bratwurst. Mm-hmm. And then one thing that I kind of like is the chicken and donut skewer. Mm-hmm. So you have like little mini powdered on top donuts, like, you know, just deep fried donuts. Then you have like little chicken, like popcorn chicken tenders or something on it. That looks pretty interesting on a skewer. That's what the Rangers are doing. The Hill, it's a meatball cone. So you have literally like an ice cream cone made out of like a bread. You have meatballs in it with marinara and mozzarella, Parmesan cheese. That looks pretty tasty.
Yeah, my Italian in me loves that. Like that is, I'm all about that. I will have that all day long.
There's always this stadium food. I didn't even know about some of these, like the ham dog, the brat burger. I knew about that, but everything else, I mean.
What's the one down there? There's like 3 different kinds of meats. There's one like lower down there, wasn't there, that had like 2 or 3 different kinds of meats all mashed together?
I think, I'm not sure, but we had like the chicken and waffle, like it was like a chicken and waffle taco.
Okay.
So you have a taco shell made, or not a shell, but like a soft taco shell made out of waffles, and you have like chicken in it with like cheese and everything. So I mean that's pretty interesting too. I mean you had chicken and waffles, now might as well have a chicken and waffle taco now. So
yeah, might as well just keep going. Yeah, just more things. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean some of these look pretty good. Some of these, you know, kind of out there. One thing I always liked at stadiums is if it's mainly a Texas thing, but I've seen them a lot, is if like the gigantic donuts.
Okay.
I just love that idea. I'm a big donut guy, just a huge donut. Like, that sounds great.
I'm down. Yeah. Yeah, I'm absolutely down to do that. Yeah, and some, like I said, some of these ideas, like I totally understand. You know, it's just like because you also, like you say, have to play to where you're at.
Right.
Right. Like you can't necessarily have something that's like, you know, like a sweet tea thing in Northern California. That doesn't work. That's how you do that more in the South, stuff like that. You have to know your audience, and that's whatever.
Philly, you're going to see a lot of cheesesteak stuff. Right. So, I mean, yeah, some of these pretty interesting, if you might say so.
Absolutely. So, going a little bit to the, right turn with this, we go to Carson Wentz. And we talked about Carson Wentz, but we talked about Carson Wentz as far as, like, actual play. Like, oh, maybe he'll do well against Pittsburgh. He's going to have a good test. Maybe he's going to have to match points with Ben Roethlisberger. Fine. Now we transition to off the field. And when I say off the field, I mean dating. Specifically, so he's had his girlfriend that he's had since high school. They went to different colleges. They made that work, which congratulations to you. That is not an easy thing to do. And basically what had happened was, they were on a date. She had to take away his phone maybe. It's just like, okay, you pay attention. Stop looking at your phone. Caught him a little bit, in the middle of everything, looking at film. Just studying film on a date, which is devotion to the cause that I have not heard. That's good on you. You want to be the quarterback of the team. You want to do well, and clearly he's done well so far, so maybe I guess that helped a little bit. I also feel like he needs to get all this good publicity right now, because if he loses to Pittsburgh, all of this, oh, look at him, he's studying, he's doing great, gone.
I mean, I guess there could be worse things he could be looking at on his phone than film. So
yes.
I guess, while it may not sit well with his girlfriend, I guess you got to give sort of credit to the dedication. Mm-hmm. Maybe you'll go on his side a little bit, but I mean, come on, man. You can put it down for an hour. Spend time with your lady. Come on.
Yeah. You guys have known each other for a while, and you guys were at different colleges. So now you're back and everything else like that. You're a star quarterback of a professional team. There's only 32 of them there. I understand you want to be great, but you gotta deviate. Just kind of do different things. Have the hour there, and then once that happens, once you get home, fine, go into your cave and just study for 7 straight hours. Yeah,
I mean, come on, man. Put the phone away just for a little bit. Okay, so we're going to end the show here with one more trending story. Mentioned David Ortiz. Mm-hmm. Obviously, his farewell season. We talked about him on Wednesday, having the great year he has, 36 home runs. They beat the Orioles last night 5-3, as you mentioned. But obviously, in Ortiz's last season, one of his last trips to every ballpark,
You
the
think
Orioles.
he retires?
Yeah, he already said this is his last year.
I know, but like, can't you just like change your mind at this point? Like, you're leading the league in
think
OPS.
he's done.
Can't you just be like, yeah, I changed my mind. This is kind of fun. Let's do this one more time.
I think he's done. I think there's nothing left for him to accomplish. You know,
No,
I mean,
there's really
won
not,
a couple
actually.
of World Series. So, but anyway, so he's at Camden Yards with the Orioles, and they gave him a farewell present, something that he might remember 3 years ago. So David Ortiz, maybe everybody has the water cooler outbursts where they take the water cooler, throw it on the ground, whatever. But David Ortiz decided to take out his frustration a few years back on a dugout phone.
Right.
When you go down there, a warm-up the right-hander Miller, whatever. So he takes out his frustration on the dugout phone. And I've seen the GIF a lot of times. He destroyed,
Yes.
in a baseball term, he hit a home run on the dugout phone.
Yes.
So the Orioles actually decided to keep that phone all this time, and they gave it back to Ortiz yesterday as like a parting gift. I thought that was pretty funny.
I like that a lot because you've seen before, the last handful of years with Mariano Rivera or Derek Jeter. Mariano Rivera had the broken bats, rocking chair. They'd give like Jeter a surfboard or something like that. Things that are nice and everything else like that. But this is like, you took time and effort into this. It's like,
they saved it all this time.
Right. Like, that was the thing where it was just like, okay, we're going to take this. Remember this? Remember when you destroyed this? Back for you. And that's just like funny to me. Like, that's not something that's like you see a lot. Like, I never heard anybody doing that with Jeter, although I never really saw Jeter lose his mind like that. And Rivera was always the most calm and stoic dude ever, probably, in baseball.
I don't think he ever showed emotion once.
No.
Like, no, even when they win the World Series. Like, there's just some guys in sports that are like that.
Yeah.
Like, Bill Belichick's like that. Like, he could win the Super Bowl and he won't even smile or, you know what I mean? So,
I
just thought that was pretty clever. They give him the phone that he smashed in July of 2013 as like a farewell parting gift. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, I think that's really unique and everything else like that. It like meant you actually like took time and thought about this, not did some like very specific, like San Diego, like I said, would give like a surfboard, which is like to them or whatever, very specific. But like this actually took thought and effort, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that was really nice. So, with that being said, we're going to end this episode of the Sports Show. I thought you did great. A little nervous, you told me, but don't worry. Nothing to be nervous about.
Thank you.
So you can find our show on a lot of great platforms. You can find it on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, among others. You can also find our podcast on our network's homepage. That's gsmcpodcast.com. You click on the Portfolio podcast. You can listen to the sports one. This is episode 67. So you can hear the previous 66, as well as any other podcast for your listening pleasure. There's sports stuff, non-sports stuff as well. There's also a coming soon tab to see podcasts, hopefully starting at the end of this year, early next year. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram as well. It's at GSMC_sports. We're also on Facebook and YouTube. Pretty much any way you can hear a podcast, we are there. So that is going to conclude this episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am Ben.
And I'm Anthony.
And we will be back on Monday after the weekend to break down everything interesting in the world of sports. Thanks for listening, guys, and have a good day. Bye.